Hi guys, welcome back to OldWayz number 82.
82.
Now we had said something about doing a cooking show this one, but we're not going to do that, and I'll explain why in just a minute. We're going to delay maybe to 83 or 84 depending. But you know, life popped up in my circumstances and in his, and that's why we're not cooking today.
We're getting right here at the holidays, and so you got friends and family coming back to the area for, Thanksgiving's coming up in a few days, and so they're popping in wanting, hey, can we see each other? It's taking up our time. We got big families.
Yes, we do.
So
yes, we do. In the live, not day before yesterday, but a week ago.
My live is what he's referring to.
His live.
We haven't got him to do lives yet, but we're getting him there.
I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. We have a subscriber, both of us do, by the handle of Patriot Preacher. And he put me on to some 5070 government that, if you'll remember in a previous video, I bought some 50 Alaskan. Well, the problem with 50 Alaskan is the shell casing is 2 inches long, and they've got to be modified. They've got to be cut down to 1 3/4 inches. Well, the preacher told me, he said, look these guys up. They've probably got what you need, and I did. Placed the order during the live, and it came in a day or two ago. And we're going to do a little bit of an unboxing for that. You got any
insight,
suggestions or ideas about reloading?
The 5070 was the transition where they had gone from the Civil War musket, which like 80% of this was a Civil War musket, and they changed the hammer, and then they made it where it had a trap door. They cut the barrel and put a section in the back. Then they lined the barrel to go from 58 down to 50 caliber. So the size of the bullet is actually a 50 some odd. I'm not remembering the exact numbers. We've got a mold for the bullet.
For circumstances, I actually have one here in my pocket.
And so that's the size of it.
This is the lead for a 5070 government.
And so it then goes into this big old brass case that looks a lot like a 32 gauge shotgun. So it's between the size of a 410 and a 20 if you're trying to get a visual of something you're referencing.
This is the trapdoor Springfield that I showed off in another video. If you look, I don't know if I can get it in close enough, but right there, it's stamped 1863. Springfield Armory, and it has the cartouche here. And like he was saying, if you look here, there's an armorer's stamp, if I can get it in close enough, that says 1870. So this is a 6370 trapdoor. And you can actually, it's really cool. I bought it from a friend of mine here in town. You can actually see the milling marks here where they cut the chamber, and where they took out the touch hole with the nipple. It's all still here. All the hardware is still here. They just removed that part. Now let's go into the unboxing and see what we can find. I'm going to set this down.
Why they did that was the war ended and they had 1 million or close to it muskets. And they knew that cartridges were the way to go. So can we convert the gun we got to function with cartridges? So the first one they did was this one, the 5070. That was refined, and by 1873 they came out with the 4570 trapdoor, and those guns were made from scratch. Where these were converted guns. So this is the transition between the musket and the later true cartridge. It shoots a cartridge, but it's the transitional. Very rare. They didn't have many of them.
No, they only had about we looked at about 10,000 total.
10 or 15,000, something like that. They were really a test case.
There was only 1,000 in the first run. I don't know if this is part of the first run or not. But the
average troops would still have muskets, and the Cavalry's were transitioned over to the Spencers and things like that cartridges gun, this would have been an infantry rifle of that day.
Y'all, it's still got the ramrod.
Mm-hmm. Just like it had when you
just
loaded
like
it with a
just like it was a muzzle loader. It's still got the ramrod. And like he was saying, this was a test piece to see if it would actually work before they made them straight up trapdoor. They put the trapdoor in straight up. But I cannot be 100% sure, but I'm 99 and 44 100% sure that this is a Bannerman gun.
Whenever many people have asked, well, hey, you know, they had the lever action Henry during the Civil War. Why didn't the Army go to that? Cost. They believed they couldn't feed it. They couldn't get ammunition to it.
Yeah, if you'll remember, it was Nathan Bedford Forrest. I believe it was either Forrest or Beauregard, PGT Beauregard, that called the Henry that damn Yankee rifle that you load on Sunday and fire all week.
But it shot 16 shots in 16 seconds. And they did not have the concept that we have today of suppressive fire, like we think today with our automatic weapons. In those days, they wanted long-range accuracy. And they're on the Great Plains, you're fighting the Indians. So you got to be able to, you know, engage the Indians at several hundred yards out there.
You're fighting at distance.
And so this gun will do that. It would fight at distance. Woo, look at them things. Ain't they sexy?
All right, I'm going to get one of these holes out. As you can see, I got a box of holes. And a loading block.
Correctly marked and everything. Look at
this. Is a 5070 government, a true 5070 government, and not a 50 Alaskan. The 50 Alaskan would be about that much taller. But this is a beast. Okay, you can see there. Find it right there. Yeah. Pull it out. Believe it or not, it does say, you can't really tell it, but it says 5070 government.
Star brass 5070 government.
Yeah. And this is my loading block. And as we load it, we just drop that in. This block is specific to the 5070, which is why you got that incredibly size hole there to stand up your shell in. We're to the point now. Let me back up where you can see me. This project is to the point now that all we need is large rifle primers.
I've got some of them.
And we'll be in business. I will have to get to the patron saint of Woodlands to see what we got to do to load it. Maybe he'll let me.
In the most basic of it, and I have loaded original 4570 and stuff like that. In the most basic, they would have put a 70 grain or thereabouts. Now, the name of the cartridge is 5070. That means the size of the bullet is a 50 caliber. There'd been a weight of the bullet, which was how much?
I don't remember, but it's about 490 grains.
Yeah, let's just say like 450, okay? So the official weight of the cartridge being written in those days would have been 50 caliber, 450 grain bullet, 70 grains of black powder. That fills the case solid to the top. In those days, if you wanted more powder, more power, you just made a longer case to add more powder. Just like in the old muzzle loading days, if you had been standard loading a 50 caliber, a 50 grain charge, and you wanted more oomph, you go to a 70 grain charge to give it more oomph. Well, they did the same thing with the brass. They just made bigger brass. And that's the reason you hear about these 4560, 4570, 4580, 45-110, 50 caliber, 5110s, things like that.
Yeah, I've got if you'll remember from Quigley Down Under, he was shooting a 45-110. And what was there's a number 3 British.
He said you could substitute the number 3 British mini ball into it.
For it. But, you know, that 110 grain case is 3 inches long.
Yeah.
It's a monster. We think this is big.
Yeah.
That 45 110 that was demonstrated in Quigley was beyond awesome. We're not going to put 100. We're not going to probably put 70 grains of powder in here just simply because of the fact of the age of the gun. But we're going to make it function.
Probably somewhere, and that was the thing too, you will see in the military nomenclature of like the 45-70 and the 50 and all these calibers that the stated name of the cartridge was 50-70, but then quite often in the actual what was issued to the troops might be a different load in it for various reasons. In the 45 Colt handgun, they loaded, instead of 40 grains of black powder in it, they were loading 30 or 35 because they felt it kicked less. It was still just as effective. And according to, of course, the Ordnance Board, for every grain of powder they could save, when you're loading millions of rounds, that meant you could load more ammo for a given amount of powder. So almost every time a cartridge was adopted by the government, and they said, okay, we're adopting the 50-70, when you handed it off to the Ordnance Board, who's actually going to get the cartridges loaded, they'd go, load sounds excessive, drop it down to 50 grains. You know, and they'd use bulkier powder and put 50 grains in it. And they would find the happy medium of it had the range, it had the accuracy with the minimum amount of powder. You know, just like today, you got bureaucrats.
No.
Yes, they did. They had bureaucrats back in them days too.
There was a guy, he was with the Union Ordnance Board. Remember that he was the commanding general of the Union Ordnance Board. And if you have any knowledge of history of that particular era, firearms history of that particular era, there were literally hundreds of of cased rifles being offered to be used. And he just simply said, we need to standardize because I cannot afford to fund 100 variations of a cased rifle.
Yeah. Well, that was the nightmare that they had during the Civil War.
One thing. That's why they stayed with muzzle loaders till the end of the war.
Yeah. They were terrified to try to change during the war. Plus the fact, let's take, for example, the 36 caliber handgun. There were the biggest by far in number were going to be the Whitneys and the Colts.
Right.
By far. Then there was Remingtons as well, excuse me. Then there were the Savage. There was all these others. So they had to make paper cartridges that would fit all of them. Otherwise, you'd end up with a gun and ammo that wouldn't fit because it was too big, too much powder, whatever. And so across the board, it was a nightmare. So this mindset flows over into the cartridge days of we're going to load one load, and it better fit in these 4 different guns. That's all there is to it. So if, like that, Springfield made that gun. If another company, I'm just making something up here, say Winchester, also made guns, they had to be the same caliber and could take the same load interchangeable because, I mean, guys were on the far-flung end of the frontier, and we have historical documentation of times where well into the early 1870s, you still had infantry units that were still using the muskets because they weren't a mainline unit or whatever. They were guarding something or whatever. And the ones that got the cartridge guns like this were normally like, we'd call it like the elite units, the Ford units. I forget the name of the unit, but they did the, I think it was 68 or 69, they did the Winter War. And it's where they marched in and fought the Sioux during the winter when they were in their winter.
Was that the Bannerman expedition?
It might have been.
Not Bannerman. There was a gun. There was the gun guy that bought up all the leftover stock. There was a Captain Bannerman who was involved in they call it the Bannerman Massacre. That was involved in that area of the woods at about that time.
Yeah, Fetterman.
Yes.
Fetterman was the big massacre.
We stand corrected.
And but there was several in there, and that's the reason they didn't make many of these, because they were testing them, and only the Ford units that were engaged in major combat expected would get it. Those guys are just sitting at a rear post somewhere. They still had Civil War era guns, because they were fighting defensive positions. The Spencers, the Sharps carbines had been used during the war to great effect and were loved. You know, those were paper cartridges and cap 'em type deal.
Wasn't it the Snyder rifle that had the hexagonal?
Whitworth.
No, the Whitworth had a diagonal bore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm talking about the one that had the magazine, the hexagonal.
Oh yeah,
magazine.
yeah. That was a.
We've talked about it before, but anyway, it was a pain in the butt to load.
Evans.
Was it? Yeah,
Evans
it was
had
an Evans.
that thing.
Because what you would do is you would put one shell in the stock of the gun, and do that, and it would move it up, and you'd put another shell behind it. Well, if you lost count, and you started and you racked it and didn't put a shell in there, you had a gap.
It took like 24 shucks of the lever to get the next live round.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to shoot and put one in every time you shot, because it'd eject one and keep the magazine full. It didn't work out. And the troopers, you know, in the height of combat, they were more interested in staying alive. And so
yeah,
you will see, I know Remington did a couple of paintings of showing cavalry soldiers, and they'd take a feed bag, like you'd feed a horse, and use it like a sling on their body and dump loose rounds. Because you were only issued, you're supposed to have a block with like, what, a dozen or 20 rounds?
I think it was like 20 rounds.
20 rounds. That was what you were supposed to fight a damn war with, was 20 rounds. And the real practical guys would just dump a bunch into a feed sack and be sitting there shooting at the Indians, you know. Yeah. That was the birth of suppressive fire.
You remember Rio Lobo?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Jack Elam.
Yeah.
The character actor, when he had a shotgun.
But he had
that little sack, had that little feed sack around his neck.
A lot of guys did that for quick reload and stuff like that to keep the guns in the fight. And the 45-70 and all later on. Remember, we didn't abandon the single action in military operations till really the 1890s, late 1880s. The first one we adopted was a 6mm Lee for the Navy.
Yeah.
You know.
The first major that I'm aware of, now I may be mistaken, but the first major conversion from a muzzle loader to a multiple round gun, this was the first step. Mm-hmm. Okay, the 50-70 government, which became the 45-70 government. But the first major step that I'm aware of a multi-shot rifle was the 30-40 Krag.
Yeah, and that was at the end of the 1800s.
That was in the 1890s.
There were several in there that floated along, the Lee, and a couple others, but they weren't widespread. We only got the Krag fully widespread in the late 1890s, and then whenever we went into Cuba and faced Mausers, we realized that we were outgunned because we had a loose box you dropped and closed, and those guys had stripper clips.
Yeah.
And so we came back and we developed the 03 Springfield, which was a copy of a Mauser.
Yeah, we actually got sued over that.
And we paid them royalties. We paid royalties to Germany for every 03 Springfield we made. And when World War I was over, because we fought them in World War I, we paid them the royalties of all the guns we made during the war. World War II happened. We went to war with Germany again. And when the war was over, we paid Germany for every 03 Springfield A3 we made in World War II. After, you know, we built these guns to shoot you guys. Here's your money. You know, I don't know if that...
Just to avoid any hard feelings.
Yeah, no hard feelings. Here's your money. Thanks for the design.
Yeah, if you've ever shot a Mauser action, you know it's silk.
Chick, chick.
You can, one finger, chick, chock, thumb, chick, chock.
Mm-hmm.
It is like silk.
It was one of the greatest innovations. But I've read stories of, there were National Guard units that still had trapdoor Springfields as their armament in the beginning of World War I.
I don't doubt that.
In some of the backwater areas, you know, even by then, they hadn't trickled up to getting bolt-action guns and things. They were still using Springfields.
That doesn't surprise me a bit.
And so, what can you do with this caliber? You can hunt hog, deer, things like that in our thick woods. The gun was originally rated to shoot out to 600-700 yards. Now, let us face it, this gun is 150 years old. It's in shooting condition.
Yeah, we've broken it apart and checked it. It's good to go.
It's good to go, but it's an old antique that bears enjoying, and what he's wanting to do is a nostalgia gun to go hunt deer with, you know, at 100 yards or less target. So therefore, it'd be a nice thing to put on the wall, would be a, you know, a mounted head and a pair of hooves and that gun sitting there and a brass mounted to the thing. So
the brass
that did it, you know.
Yeah, the guy that I bought it from, I didn't realize I bought it through a third party, a gun shop here in town. But after I bought it, he called me and he said, "Hey, I heard you got my rifle." And I thought, "Oh my God, really?" But anyway, he was super nice. Matter of fact, he's the guy that made the lead that I showed you. He made me a whole sack of those. He's just that good of a guy. Mm-hmm. But he took a deer with it 3 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago. He actually took a doe with it on his land, and I hope to repeat that event.
If you're looking for something modern that'll give you a rough, and this is not an exact comparison, but it's the closest thing that we can tell you right now that you can pick up right now and get an idea, would be to shoot a slug out of a 20 gauge shotgun. That would be similar. 20 gauge is a little bigger.
It's hard to find the 32 gauge.
Yeah, it's hard to find a 32, but that's what that is a 32 gauge. And prior to the Civil War, you don't see the term shotgun used a lot. The term was called a fowler, or another term was a smooth bore.
Right.
Okay. After the Civil War, so many of them muskets had been rusted and worked, and the bores were just so shot out that they would ream them out and make them into shotguns, especially for poor people. Make a single shot shotgun, and they did load shells to go into them, and that is where we get the 32 gauge shotgun out of, was originally the 58 caliber muskets. See, after the war they would say it's a shotgun, meaning it was made from the beginning to be what we think of as a shotgun, and not a wore-out gun or a smooth bore or a fowler.
Also, if you had pissed off the company sergeant, he would put you on foraging duty and hand you this little sawed-off thing about like that and point you toward the place where the prairie chickens were last seen.
And that was
and a handful of shells.
It was basically one of those, but it was a smooth bore, and they had shot shells, and it was called the Forager. And it performed about like we think like a 410 shotgun. Well, you're in the middle of the Great Plains where an Indian can turn you into a pincushion at 100 yards with bow and arrow, and they just gave you a 40-yard shotgun. You didn't want to tick off the first sergeant. Nobody wanted to be the forager.
But if you just happen to be blessed with that task, that's what you were stuck with using.
Yep. When you look at the H&R shotguns or the old single shot, that's where the idea came from, is that gun.
Yeah.
They just made it where it was a break. You know, in fact, I have seen in some early, when they were talking about converting the muskets, instead of doing the trapdoor, I have seen them converted to a break action. There was a guy out of Massachusetts that came up with a break action design that looks like our modern single shot shotgun. You had a latch in the back, you turn the barrel tip down, and you'd stick a brass cartridge in and close it and then cock it.
Well, now, you know, the Burnside rifle worked that way.
Exactly like the Burnside. The Burnside, you look at our modern shotguns and compare Burnside, same idea.
Yeah, it was a good idea that went absolutely nowhere. But yeah, General Burnside, Ambrose Burnside, invented his own rifle for cavalry, and is that the one that had the snow cone round?
Yes.
It was the Burnside?
It was the Burnside. It had a hard rubber case on the back that you would put the powder in and squeeze the bullet into, and you would then tip it down like a break-action shotgun. It dropped in place, and that pointed bullet would drop in and fit the loading cone perfect. Yeah. That stopped it flush so it couldn't go too deep. You closed it, click, and then you capped it and fired, and when you fired and you opened it up, it would push out that old rubber from the original shot like a cartridge firearm, and they could save and reload them, but it was a hard rubber, you know, and they make modern reproductions of that carbine, and there are guys that love it for the Civil War reenacting cavalry thing.
Explain to me, or explain to them, the difference between a carbine and a rifle.
Okay, I brought an example for this.
Just to show you how great minds think alike. This was not planned.
Give me one moment, because Blackie has thrown his back out. You understand? It takes a moment for all this awesomeness to get going. Here we go. Okay, take this. This is a Model 92 rifle. Now, longer stock, wood fore-end that comes out and is usually pinned between the barrel and the magazine tube, and the magazine tube is usually supported up here, and then there's a gap to the end of the barrel, okay? Longer sight radius. It is a rifle. The stock is a full-length stock, and quite often it's a flat butt plate, or like this one has a crescent. Okay? This gun is unloaded. It will be smooth on the back side and not have a ring loop on it. You're going to hear the term saddle ring carbine or carbine. Okay? Now this, hold on, man, I'm going to put them side by side.
Yeah.
This is a carbine. See how much shorter it is? Here's the end of the barrel, and over here, scoot it toward you a little bit. There. See the difference in lengths? All right, now bring it back and sit down. And not only that, whenever you line up the receivers, you will see that the stock is also about a ½ inch shorter than the rifle. This one has a flat butt on it, called a shotgun butt. This one has a scoop style. This is called a crescent. This is a carbine. Carbines were meant, like in the Civil War days, meant short and handy, usually meant for the back of a horse or something like that. That was easy. You could hold it one-handed, see, to swing onto a target while holding on to the horse at the same time. The rifle is much too big and heavy to swing because it's so long and heavy. Often these had octagonal square barrels, and this one, the carbines, had round barrels to save weight. Also, they usually had a band right here in front of the sight, so the magazine tube and the barrel were the same length. They were banded right there. Another thing you will encounter is a short rifle. Okay? A short rifle will be like this, but the barrel will only be this long. It'll be the length of that carbine, but it's like they just cut it off right there and put all the stuff on it. So it'll have the long wood up here, and it will have the stock. Now notice, this one has a pin. This one has a carbine band to hold that on. That's another indication. This is meant for relatively short range, like 100 yards, something like that. It can perform farther out, but that band going across the front sight and that band up there at the muzzle affect long-range accuracy. The rifle does not have that problem, and therefore is better for long range. So, when you see somebody talking about they're shooting a carbine, they mean a short gun like this. If they're shooting a 92 rifle, they mean something like this. And if they say it is a saddle ring carbine, it's the same gun, but on this side there's a ring there. And what that was for, you slid it into the holster on the side of a horse and tied the gun into the holster. So as the horse jumps or bucks, your gun don't come out. See? Rifles don't have that ring on the side. And so therefore, this had to be totally tied in or secured some way and wasn't quick and easy to get out.
I don't know for certain, but the rifle is going to be in a deeper scabbard under the saddle with less chance of falling out.
Exactly. And once in a blue moon, you'll see old movies and stuff, and it will show up here in front of the cowboy, you'll have one sitting like this with the gun sitting straight up. Really short, like this is the length of a Civil War cavalry carbine. And we're talking about Spencers and Sharps, carbines. This is the length that became popular during the Civil War for mounted fighting on a horse. This was something they could hold one-handed, easily bring up and snap on tight, and still hold the reins in the hand, see? It was quick. And they would put them like that. A lot of times up here on the saddle horn, they had a leather loop of heavy saddle leather, and this would slide crossways like that in front of them so they could pull it out. Had to be something short and handy. A rifle was too big and awkward. Remember in the outlaw Josie Wales, when they get up on the riverbank and they realize they got Yankees in front of them and there's Yankees coming up behind them, and so they say they're going to wait right here. And remember the famous Missouri boat ride? Josie goes up and pulls a long Sharps gun that it comes from behind him underneath his stirrup on the side of the horse. Big, long scabbard. And he pulls that gun out and it's got a scope on it. And he says a Missouri boat ride and shoots the thing. That's how you carried a rifle. But if you notice, in a couple of scenes in there where they got cavalry and stuff, you look around when the cavalry's showing up to fight Josie, you'll see a carbine, I believe, up on a holster, sticking straight up like that. That's what they're doing.
Just a fun footnote.
Yep. Now, one second. For modern times, this gun is good for hunting out to like 250 yards. This gun is what I'm going to hunt when I'm stalking up close, 50, 75, but I can stay on the deer at 100 yards with it, but it is a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, that's a good brush gun.
This is great for thick brush. Notice how light and handy it is. This is better for sitting in a deer stand and shooting long range.
Yeah, that's your old Ma Bell rifle. Reach out and touch something. Yep. That's your Ma Bell. Fun footnote though, most Confederate cavalry units had two double-barreled muzzle loaders, shotguns, sawed-off shotguns, in pistol buckets on the front of the saddle, because you could pull it out and you got two shots of scattergun good out to 50 yards here, and you can pull the other one out, cock it, and you got 2 rounds good out to 50 yards on either side. But most Confederate cavalry units carried a sawed-off muzzle-loading shotgun and twin pistols.
The muzzle-loading shotgun is devastating effective at close range. It's just very slow to load.
Right, which is why you go in ready and then use it during the battle and ditch them.
Yep.
Come back and pick them up later.
Yep, and they also were known for carrying big buoys or something else. And I've told the story of the old guy and part of the Louisiana Zouaves, that he carried a double bit axe cut down short like a battle axe, and he had a double barrel shotgun and pistols, and he would charge in from ambush with the pistols, one in each hand. He'd put the reins in his teeth and he would steer the horse with his knees. The horse was so well trained, and he'd bam, 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 running through the Yankees. At point X, he had lanyards on the gun. He'd drop the guns into the holster. He'd whirl around. He'd bring up the rifle and start engaging targets high speed. And then when the bad guys sort of got organized back at him, that's when he'd bring up the double barrel shotgun, duck their heads, and spur through the middle of them and pull the double bit axe. Anybody charged up and tried to grab a hold of him, whomp. You know.
His name wouldn't have been Reuben Cogburn, would it?
No. No. But when they were researching, and the story that was True Grit was based on actual people that had lived. Now, they weren't together. That story never happened, but the actual people. And the writer, when he was researching it, found that account of that old man who fought with an artillery unit in the Louisiana Zouaves. There was a young boy and an old man. And the cannons would set up, and when the Yankees came up, they would fire out of the camouflage themselves on the side of the trail. They'd fire the cannons, and then the old man would roll in, hooting and hollering and shooting and making the Yankees run and duck and dive and shooting. And when he turned to come back out, he pulled that out. The boy was standing there with a Henry rifle taking out anybody that was trying to shoot him. And they would gallop through. A mile or so up the road, the cannons would dig in again for another ambush, and the old man and the boy had set up.
Now, according to that story, didn't they fire? They didn't unhook the cannon.
They left the cannons hooked to the horse.
Hooked up to the limbers.
Yeah. They went and dropped the tongue down. They'd drive a stake down and put it against it, but it was still hooked up.
Yeah.
So when she fired, it bucked back, and then all they had to do was yank the tongue up and put it on and go. And so it was bang. One guy sat on the horse.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't leading the horses. One guy sitting on the back of the horse. And so whenever they fired, they had lift up that tongue so it wouldn't drag. And just as soon as it hooked, yonder they went. You know, they loaded rocks, nails, anything they could get. But that was the basis of Rooster Cogburn, and that ending scene where old John Wayne's standing there and he's taking on what, 5 to 1. That's what it was based on, was that old man. You know, him galloping through. He had a rifle, and because John had a rifle and a pistol.
And the reins in his mouth.
And the reins in his mouth. It was based on that old man. At one time I knew what that man's name was. He was 87 years old.
During the war?
During the war. Because his commander said, somebody said about replacements. He said, and that commander said that he needed replacements. And he said, well, sir, we're hard-pressed everywhere to find fresh recruits. He said, I have a man who is 87 in my unit and a boy that's 13. And that was the old man and the boy. So, yeah.
Though the boy was kind of touched, wasn't he?
He was quiet.
Yeah.
They don't know if he was special needs or he might have been mute, but the only little reference, what it was a Yankee newsman who had got captured going down the Mississippi River. He was trying to get behind the lines and get a big scoop, and he'd got captured and was going with these Louisiana Zouaves as their prisoner until finally he was paroled like a month and a half later and sent back north, and it was his account of being with them for about 2 weeks as they were fighting in, I think they were in Mississippi is where they were fighting.
I think that's right. Either right there or northern Louisiana.
I believe it was in Mississippi, but
yeah. How
they were just fighting a delaying action. They didn't have any numbers or mass, and they were just delaying the Yankees.
Well, it's like like you and I have always been raised. It's not the man in the fight; it's the fight in the man.
How bad do you want to do it?
Yeah.
You know, and that is bore out true. Well, that's back to your gun. When you go back and read the history, guys, to graduate basic training for the U.S. Army in 1873, you had a rifle just like that, but that Bear's getting the shells for, but it was in 45-70, and they had a target that was 6 feet tall, 18 inches wide. It was bored. That was painted white, or painted some way you could see it out there against the background. And you had to have 3 hits out of 10 tries at 1,000 yards with iron sights. Because if you couldn't do that, you didn't graduate basic training, you couldn't shoot.
How big was the board?
18 inches wide, 6 feet tall. That's a dot.
That's almost where you have to take in the Coriolis effect.
Well, I'm serious. I used to shoot long-range target work. And I can give you another reference. An empty 9mm brass at 33 yards, 6 inches, okay, is exactly the same silhouette as a 6-foot-tall man at 1,000 yards.
Really?
Is exactly the same. And we used to shoot 9mm brass at 33 yards, 6 inches with Beeman Venom air rifles that because if you could do that, then you could pick up the 30-06 and do it, because it was a dot.
Yeah.
It wasn't no big old target, even pumped up magnification like crazy. It was a dot. You know, and that's what a man looks like at 1,000 yards, is just an elongated dot. And they were doing that with those guns and iron sights.
According to the story, they had to stop it at 1,000 yards because that's where they ran out of beach. Beach is the only place they could find to do this.
Actually, that was when they were testing the 45-70, and they went to Sandy Hook, New Jersey, and it was 3,000 yards. That's in those days, the way they didn't have our computers and stuff, right? And so they took the 45-70 and they said, how far away would you have to be for the bullet to not penetrate a 1-inch thick oak board? Well, they kept backing up and backing up and backing up, and they were at the end of it, they were making a 100-foot wide oak target, just a 100-foot square, and you were shooting up, and the bullet was lobbing down straight down. And at 3,028 yards, they ran out of beach.
Yeah.
And it was still punching through a 1-inch board. Yeah. And they ruled that far enough, and they quit going any further.
That's like the other day, he and I went to the range to sight in my 308, and we got it down where I'm dead on at 200, but I'm about that low, closer in than 100, which is about 3 inches.
Mm-hmm.
About 3 inches. But I'm looking forward to trying it out too.
Mm-hmm. That way, like we said, if you can see his eyes, aim low on his chest. Mm-hmm. If you can't see his eyes, just put it on the chest. You're in the 6-inch circle.
Yeah. That's
all that matters.
Well, guys, today is the first day of deer season. And
I was shocked, mind you, when he called me up and said, let's go do an OldWayz. I said, I thought you was going to be in the woods hunting today. And he went, I can go hunting tomorrow. I went, okay.
Hey, priorities.
Priorities.
I get a chance to be in the woods with the patron saint of the woodlands.
Oh, God, man.
Okay.
Give me some boots.
Saint Michael of the fields.
Oh, God, it's getting deep now. Woo! I am just a redneck from Alabama, dude.
No, seriously, guys, we do appreciate y'all joining us today. This has been fun. Mm-hmm. And we promise you we will complete the cooking assignment we promised you. Mm-hmm. And like I said, that may be next week. It may be the week after, but we are going to get it done in short order. Mm-hmm. I've got we want to cook. We want to bake a loaf of bread and cook something to eat along with it. Mm-hmm. I may put out a practice video between now and then to make sure I can still cook what I want to cook, which I think would be good because I've got one of those Pathfinder skillets that I really need to try out. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's what's coming down the pipeline in the near future. You got anything we need to add?
Not that I know of right off the top of here.
Guys, like I said, we appreciate you joining us. Don't forget, if you are a hunter, obey your game laws. Don't do anything creative. Trust me, game wardens don't like creative. Mm-mm. And please be safe. Okay, don't do anything creative with your safety because we want you back here with us for the foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. But on that note, as we always like to say, we will see you down the road.
Safe journeys.